Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to Kano Tryharding Modern. Owing to the fact that I've gotten like 30 subscribers in the last 5 days, thank you all so much. Almost everybody who's been watching, almost all the new subscribers are from people watching the Tron videos, so thank you so much. Owing to their extreme popularity on this channel, I will be doing another one today. And so we have a slight variation on the list. This one is running a nurturing peatland instead of a forest, presumably because of the cantrip mode and the ability to reduce Dismember's life cost by 1, turn it into, I guess, kind of an ulcerate. And it has a little bit different of a sideboard, but this list recently 4-1'd, so we will be taking this into a modern league. I don't think I need to sit around and explain a whole lot more, so without any further ado, here we go. Alright, round 1, here we go. Almost had disaster this morning. I ran out of my high caffeine coffee yesterday, and then, so I drank Rockstar, and then forgot to replace the Rockstar, and so I had no caffeine, and then I found a container of Folgers, and everything was fine. Alright, Natural Tron, Double Karn, Triple Karn? Natural Tron, Triple Karn. Let's do it. So I think I'm really tempted to keep this hand and put back map, but that is almost certainly incorrect. If my opponent has Ghost Quarter, if my opponent has Field, we want the Expedition map to be able to nab whatever Tron piece they nuke. So in reality, I probably put back a Karn Liberated here, but this is pretty close to the ideal Tron hand, so there's no way I'm not keeping this. Start map, pass the turn. Okay. Opponent starts Windswept Heath, Temple Garden. It's Boggles. So we draw a Forest. We play Mine. Pass the turn. If our opponent goes very tall very quickly, we just play Karn and get an Ensnaring Bridge, which I hope is in this version, the sideboard. Yeah, okay, there's an Ensnaring Bridge on the sideboard. No need to panic, everybody. Kano knows what he's doing, question mark. Alright, so opponent gets another Temple Garden. Shocks. This is going to let them play a whole bunch of enchantments. Double Ethereal Armor is pretty intimidating. So what I'm going to do now is I'm not going to crack map because I don't want the additional card in my hand. Play Tower. Play Karn. Wish. And get Ensnaring Bridge. Play Ensnaring Bridge. Pass the turn. So, the alternative thing I could have done was crack map to get Blast Zone, and then Blast Zone on 1, take out all my opponent's permanents. The problem is I wouldn't have had the mana to do that this turn, and we would have taken probably a lot more damage. Alright, opponent is playing a million Boggles. We untap. We draw Urza's Mine. So, crack map. We're going to get Blast Zone. Play Blast Zone. Nuke the board. Awesome. And our opponent concedes. Okay, so versus Boggles, what do we do? I think we need to... We could bring in Wilt. It's not bad. It's actually probably a little better than Dismember. Dismember can take out Core Spirit Dancer, but that's the only creature that they ever play that does not have Hexproof. So the majority of the time you're not going to hit their creatures. Like, we basically have to hit Blast Zone, O-Stone, or All is Dust. And that's how we're going to kill... Oh, I guess we have Ugin too in this version. But so I'm going to bring in a Wilt, and I'm going to cut probably Walking Ballista, actually. I think Walking Ballista is pretty medium here. And we'll run it back. Yeah. Keep. This is what the Tron does. Opponent starts a Boggle. We start Urza's Mine, play map, pass the turn. Okay. Opponent plays a Forest. So the good news is we can play Karn and Snaring Bridge. And if my opponent has Glade Cover Scout actually big enough to be a threat, and nukes and Snaring Bridge with a Disenchant or something like that, we're following this up with an Ulamog, which I really hope would be enough to win. It's also really nice when you just draw everything you need. You know, stuff like this shouldn't be legal. Alright. Opponent plays a Razor Verge Thicket. Probably a Daybreak Coronet. Oh, Griffspoon, okay. I was going to say probably Daybreak Coronet, because they didn't play any green auras last turn. Gaddock Teague. Well, we will have a Worm Coil engine, which is nice, and we're getting a Blast Zone. Okay. Opponent attacks for 3. We go to 15. Untap. We draw a Sylvan Scrying, so play Tower, play a Chromatic Star, and a Worm Coil engine. My opponent could have a Path to Exile here, and honestly that would be fine, because then they definitely wouldn't have the auras required to kill us. Gaddock Teague is really only a mild annoyance for this deck, because some of our biggest and best threats are creatures. This kind of strikes me as my opponent going, I don't have any other sideboard for this is my best option. Which is not where you want to be when you're sideboarding. Okay, opponent plays a Core Spirit Dancer. They attack for 3, they're going to take us to 12, sure. We untap, we draw a Chromatic Star, play a Tower, play Big Papa Ulamog, nuke our opponent's 2 scariest cards, and the game's over. I'll see you guys in round 2. For those of you paying attention, this is part 2 of our ongoing series, Humiliating Hexproof. I'll see you guys in round 2. Alright, round 2, here we go. This opponent gets to choose. They play first. This is a Tron hand. And we'll have 2 draws to hit a... We'll have 3 draws to hit a second Tron piece. I'm trying to be more polite to my opponents, because I tend to just ignore the chat, and I shouldn't do that. I should respond. If they say good luck, have fun, say good luck, have fun. Be nice. Yeah, I think we just have better 6s, right? Oh, not this one. 5. Oh yeah, sure, yeah, and Natural Tron on 5 is fine, yeah. We'll put back Sylvan Scrying, and put back Chromatic Star. Seems good to me. Okay, so opponent starts Flooded Strand. Cracks Flooded Strand and finds Island. Serum Visions? Oh, Sleight of Hand. Okay, so this is probably Storm. Storm is... It's like... Storm and Ad Nauseam are the only 2 decks that actually run Sleight of Hand. So, Urza's Power Plant, Expedition Map. Pass the turn. The bad news is we were on the draw, and our opponent is a turn 3 combo deck, which Wizards has said they don't want in Modern, but they continue to allow Storm to exist in its current form. And the worst part is, it's like they can go from, oh, okay, maybe it's not Storm. It is not Storm. It is something weird and janky, which I'm cool with. We get an O-Stone, which is actually kind of good here. We'll play an Urza's Mine, and then, yeah, we'll just pass. We could play Walking Ballista and kill this, but that would take us off of turn 3 Tron. And there's always the opportunity for us to, like, I don't know, top deck Karn, and, even if our opponent's playing blue and has counter spells, we'll have like multiple board wipes in the form of O-Stone, Ugin. We do need to draw another land for Ugin to be good, so Ugin cannot come down pre-turn 4. Our opponent's just going on maximum level up here. Wow, okay, I thought they would have like Stubborn Denial or something once they got this to 4, but it's pretty apparent that they don't. So they get in for 4, they take us to 16. Expedition Map, we'll get Tower. Untap. We draw another Mine, play Tower, play O-Stone. We can't crack O-Stone this turn, so we're just going to play Ballista on 2. Force of Negation with Miscast. So my opponent is playing, like... It's got to be an Uro deck. I can't think of why else you would be in these colors doing these things. Okay, well, we'll play Ballista on 2, because theoretically that can block. Yeah, they could play a land and level it up to a 6/6 with protection from everything, and then we just Ugin -1, and they're sad. Unless they have another force, in which case we're sad, because then they would just have the nuts. Also, playing counterspell, I mean, like, Force of Negation makes sense to me, but, like, playing counterspells in a deck where you're playing a threat that you, like, have to tap out for your best curve for the first 3 turns is a little weird. But opponent is almost out of resources, which is good. The question is, will they kill us in 3 swings? If they don't level it up all the way, we can block and then just ping them twice. But I have a feeling they're going to level it up all the way, which means they will need a Force of Negation, or I guess a Commandeer. which is unlikely but possible on our Ugin. Okay, opponent gets in for 6, takes us to 10. Alright, we draw Forest. I don't think there's any Force Spike Days, shenanigans, or anything like that that exists in Modern, at least to my knowledge, so there's no reason for us to play Forest here. We'll just play the Mine. Play Ugin. I'm really glad this version plays Big Ugin right now. Minus, it's X or less, right? It's 1 or more colors. Okay. -1. Is my opponent conceding? My opponent conceded. Okay. Alright, so our opponent is playing, it's kind of like Teamer Delver used to be, or like Tarmo Twin without the combo, for anybody who remembers what that deck was. It's just like Teamer stuff. I kind of want the other Dismember. Spatial Contortion I don't want because it's too expensive. I think Spatial, or mana cost-wise, Spatial Contortion doesn't do enough damage. It's going to get countered way too easily. And, like, this is basically for killing burn threats, because Dismember is, like, too life costly in that scenario. I actually really like Walking Ballista in this matchup. Ugin might be our worst card, despite the fact that it absolutely saved us. I do want to keep a Thragtusk at the very least. I think having the ability to gain life on enters the battlefield on at least 1 card is going to be important. I have to cut 2 cards, and I'm really not sure what I'm supposed to cut in this matchup, because I'm also really not sure what my opponent's playing. It's possible I cut Walking Ballista, but like, Walking Ballista can kill Hex Drinker on turn 2 if I don't have Tron, but if I don't have Tron, what am I doing on turn 2? Because I'm not playing the deck like I should. Then I'm like, okay, Walking Ballista is coming out of the deck because Walking Ballista, the best case scenario for it is planning for failure. It's planning for not having Tron on turn 3 if I'm casting Walking Ballista on turn 2. Unless I have natural Tron in hand, in which case I'm just going to do better things anyway. So I'm taking Walking Ballista out of the deck. That might be a mistake, but by my current line of logic, I just don't think it's going to work. And I think just 1 Dismember is going to be fine, actually. I don't want 2. So in reality, all I did was bring in 2 Veil of Summer, take out Walking Ballista, and a Thragtusk. And it's just my best guess based on what my opponent's doing. This hand is unkeepable. This hand is mildly better, but still not great. I'm at 5. I don't want to go any lower than this, and this is not fantastic. I'm going to keep, however, and I'm going to put back Worm Coil and Sylvan Scrying. Okay, so this hand is amazing if I top deck any Tron piece other than Urza's Mine. This hand is good if I top deck a land. And we draw a Dismember, which is not a bad spell to have in this spot. Okay, so we have 2 options. We play Urza's Mine, we play Expedition Map, or we play Urza's Mine and we play Chromatic Sphere. If we play the map and we top deck another Tron piece, it's just turn 3 natural Tron. My opponent is playing a crapload of counter spells, however. If we play Chromatic Sphere, that gives us an additional draw trying to find a second land, but makes Expedition Map harder to resolve because my opponent is going to have more counter spells. And more mana for counter spells. But Chromatic Sphere, provided we draw another land, gets us to Sylvan Scrying or an Ancient Stirrings off the top, which is good. I think in this situation, playing Chromatic Sphere first is probably the way to play the game. I think that's probably the best move, but I really want to have Expedition Map on the board because it is unlikely that my opponent can counter this without Force right now. And if they counter with Force, or Shoal, which is effectively Force here, they're pitching 2 cards to answer a 1-drop. So as long as we top deck lands, we should beat our opponent. Free counter spells are great when you're disrupting a counter, like a combo deck on a turn that you won't have mana. Free counter spells are terrible if you don't back them up with a quick threat, or you're not drawing tons and tons of cards, so that you just waste the cards to card disadvantage. Okay. We're going to play Chromatic Sphere. We would play this before a land pretty much every single time. Opponent says, dang, clicked wrong land. Now they have to shock. And they play Goyf. Okay. Really hoping to hit a land. Okay. Really hoping to hit a land. Alright. Cool. Dismember worked. We could have tried resolving map there, but like, because we're not drawing lands, we need to make sure our opponent doesn't have a threat for as long as possible. Well, they have a threat now, and a threat we can't do anything about. We basically need to top deck Tron piece, Blast Zone might work. So we're gonna play map. I was gonna say this is gonna get forced. I think opponent is playing very boldly. I would not play my opponent's deck the way that they're playing their deck. It looks like their plan is to resolve a Hexdrinker, Tarmogoyf, or insert threat number 3, Uro, I guess. And then back it up with as many free counterspells as they could jam in their deck. The problem is that doesn't work against a lot of decks in the metagame. The problem is, though, I think our opponent did get us here, but they only got us because we didn't draw lands. If we had drawn, like, it's turn 6, they went first. Okay, so if we had turn 5, we had 5 draws counting Chromatic Sphere, 6 draws. We were on the draw. If we had 6 draws to hit a land and we only hit 1 land, we were losing anyway. Like, doesn't matter what our opponent did. Okay, yep. And, like, I'm not going to get upset about that. It's just the way that Magic is. It's variance. You guys saw how we crushed game 1 because we just happened to have Tron both games. And you're going to have games like that. And you're going to have games like this. And it's important to not get frustrated, because if you get frustrated and tilted, you're not going to play well. And then you're going to get even more frustrated and tilted because you're going to lose harder. So, did we get any information in that game that we want to use to adjust our deck? I don't think we did. Order. Knock it off. That's disgusting, dude. Alright, we'll play first. Tron Piece, Threats, and Ancient Stirrings. Sure, we'll keep. If we top deck a Chromatic Star, fantastic. If we top deck Expedition Map, okay. If we top deck Tron Piece, obvious best scenario. And if we don't do any of that, we have a Blast Zone in hand for our opponent's Hexdrinker or Tarmogoyf. So the problem is our opponent kept 7, and they're playing only 800 free counterspells. So, and by 800 I mean 8. Like, actually, I would not put it past them to be playing Commandeer. So I think the nightmare scenario is we actually get Tron on turn 3, we play Karn, and then my opponent exiles their entire hand to take control of the Karn spell, and we're screwed. Okay, so we can play Tower and just hope for turn 3 Tron, but I really want green mana when we play Karn, so that we're going to go for a turn 4 Tron, basically so that we can fire off Ancient Stirrings here. My opponent probably is going to shoal this, but what that means is they have 1 less counterspell. We'll have mana for Veil. Okay, they shoal it, exiling Miscast. And if we don't make it to Tron, we will have enough mana before we die to play Blast Zone and nuke any opponent's 1-drop threats. So if they just play, like, Delvers and Hexdrinkers this game, we can just wipe their board with Blast Zone without, like, charging it up or anything like that. One thing I want to point out, I really think Delver in Modern is a terrible threat. I think the card is not good, for the reason that you just saw. Like, even if you're playing a deck that has the proper number of spells to make Delver flip most of the time, you don't have the top deck manipulation in Modern to actually make it flip. Like, you have Serum Visions, but my opponent just bottomed 2 cards. Like, they're praying that Delver flips, and they have 2 Delvers now. So if they flip, I'm screwed. But if they don't flip, my opponent is screwed. And it's literally devolved this game into... What does Delver play like? It's like 30... No, it's like 24 spells or something like that. So what is that? 24 out of 60 is like 43%? Somewhere in that neighborhood? 43% chance that they flip? It's a little less because obviously, you know, who knows what's in their hand and whatnot. But overall, it's approximately that percentage. Alright, well, I'm going to play Tower. And I'm going to play O-Stone. Okay, they didn't counter that. Oh, they got lucky. The good news is... Oh, crap. So, alright, we're going to take 6. We go to 13. I'm going to cast Blood Moon. That's a problem. I did not expect a Blood Moon out of my opponent. However, we are going to get to crack O-Stone unless my opponent has an Abrade. At which point they'll have just got us. We'll play Nurturing Peatland, but what I said oh crap about. So when you're playing, it used to be that the back half of flip cards were considered to be 0 mana cost. That ruling got changed when, what was it, Shadows dropped Shadows over Innistrad. Opponent is going to Natural State. Can we do anything about this? I don't think we can. We might be screwed. We need to top deck our Singleton Thragtusk in order to have kind of a hope or a prayer here. We didn't get it. What I was going to say, though. So, it used to be that the back half was considered 0 CMC. I think the ruling changed during Shadows over Innistrad that the back half CMC is the front half CMC for flip cards. All right, we got Thragtusk. So we have to hope our opponent does not have Shoal on... Oh, no, you know what? It doesn't work anymore. Because we play Thragtusk, and we gain 5 and take 6 and die. So, a valiant effort on our part, but unfortunately we got Delvered. But it goes back to what I said, right? I was like, if my opponent's Delvers flip, we're screwed. And if they don't flip, my opponent's screwed. Like, it's just that simple. Because could you imagine if my opponent was beating down with 1/1s for the last 3 turns? We'd have 12 more life than we do right now. Even with a Blood Moon out. But, alright, well, sometimes that's bound to happen. And I'm going to chalk that one up to literal variance, because we had the threats, we had the backup, we had the consistency, and we were going to get to 5 mana to crack an O-Stone, we were going to have Blast Zone, we had everything we needed, but my opponent had Artifact Removal, Blood Moon, and 2 Delvers that flipped on the perfect turn for them to flip. So, it happens. I'll see you guys in round 3. Alright, round 3, here we go. Almost Tron. I'm going to keep this. We do have a Chromatic Star for a redraw. So start mine. You should almost always play Tower last, because if you have to spend mana on the turn you're assembling Tron, you want to have Tower untapped, if at all possible. Because then you have 3 mana, you could potentially cast an O-Stone to set up, or something like that. Alright, it is the mirror match, and it looks like my opponent is in a better position than we are. So, we get an Ugin, back for green, Sylvan Scrying, or Ancient Stirrings, or Chromatic Sphere is kind of okay. It's something to do this turn, but it's not the best thing we could do. So Ancient Stirrings off the top would be really great. Map off the top is not terrible. Pass the turn. The problem is, Wormcoil and Ugin are terrible threats in the Tron matchup, because Ugin exiles nothing, and Wormcoil is just dies to Karn. Okay, so my opponent played a Wastes, which means they're Eldrazi Tron and not Green Tron or Blue Tron. So, this is a very different game than what I was just anticipating. What we're going to do is we're going to crack map and get Power Plant, play Power Plant, play map, and pass the turn. Unfortunately, we can't leave up 1 mana here for Dismember, which I would really like to do. But I suspect my opponent is going to crack map, get Eldrazi Temple, and then play Thought Knot. I think that's their best line, and it's their probable line, that's what they have. Let's see if I'm right. Alright, they go for a Tron piece. That means they don't have Thought Knots here, unless they have a Simian Spirit Guide. Which some versions of Eldrazi Tron play. I used to play a version of Eldrazi Tron I called Eldrazi Mud, because the entire point of the deck was to play Thorn of Amethyst or Chalice of the Void on turn 1. Okay, Ancient Stirrings. So what we're going to do, we could play Tron piece, have 10 mana, and play Ugin and crack map. That's cool, but it's also lame. So what we're going to do is play Nurturing Peatland, add a green, Ancient Stirrings, try and hit... Oh, Akarn. You know what? I did it wrong. I totally forgot that this card existed after just calling out that it existed. So, punt. Okay, this isn't too bad. So we can still play Wormcoil. Everything's fine. We're just not playing Ugin this turn. Which is good and bad. It's good because Ugin only is... He's at 8 mana Lightning Bolt right now. But it's bad because if my opponent assembles Tron and takes us off Tron, we're never casting Ugin again. Had my opponent not played Chalice there, the line that I took would be correct, because if we hit Karn, this game is over. Either one. Karn Great Creator or Karn liberated. But because I, lost all my brain cells for a second, my opponent did not assemble Tron, which is fantastic news. Once again, their best play is Thought Knots here. So this is the bad part about playing Eldrazi Tron, because I'm still positive that's what they're playing. That's the only deck that plays all these cards. Okay, Karn, Great Creator. They tick up Karn, not targeting anything. Okay. Draw Power Plant. We just kill Karn, right? Like, they should have wished. Okay, so we will attack Karn. We gain 6 life. They lose Karn. Okay, we currently have 8 mana. We could pay 2, go down to 6, get Sanctum, go up to 7, but we can't play Ugin if we do that. Blast Zone does not handle Chalice of the Void, so I think our best bet is to just play Ugin. The best play our opponent could make is like last Tron piece, double Reality Smasher, kill Ugin. Alright, Blast Zone. Turn off auto yields, because I might want to crack map in response. Holy crap. Can't speak right now. Trying to go too fast for my vocal capabilities here. So, even though we misplayed, apparently my opponent kept the most anemic hand that Eldrazi Tron has ever had. And I'm trying to think of, like, what could have tempted them to keep this hand? Like, why did they keep this hand? Was it just, like, a Tron potential? That would be my only real explanation for it. Yeah, I guess we just get Sanctum. We're going to thin our deck a little bit. Yeah, Sanctum was the call. So, first, tick up Ugin. Go to combat. Attack for 6. We're going through these motions. We're kind of slow rolling a little bit, but we were trying to draw anything our opponent could have. It's likely they just scooped a Karn, but like... Okay. We use Sanctum because we're going to sack Sanctum. Opponent concedes. Okay. So, versus Eldrazi Tron, Wilt is coming in. We will need the Dismember. We do not need Walking Ballista. And Veil of Summer doesn't protect us. Thragtusk is kind of medium. I'm actually going to cut one. And All Is Dust does nothing, so All Is Dust comes out. Ugin actually is slightly better than All Is Dust because Ugin could do damage. He could kill Matter Reshapers, he puts my opponent on a clock, and if you ult him, you win the game. So, we could bring in Emrakul, the Promise End. It wouldn't be terrible. In fact, it might be better than Ugin, but I'm not going to worry too much about it. He is a lot harder to cast than Ugin is, so... If we play Ugin again, and he just has an absolutely medium performance, like my opponent playing 2 Reality Smashers in the turn and killing him, I'll take him out for Emrakul, but... Okay, so a little bit risky. We have Tower, Star, Star, Expedition Map. Tower, Sphere, Star, excuse me. If we draw another Tron piece, we have Natural Tron. And we're on the draw, so I'm actually going to keep this. There's a good chance we draw nothing, which is why we probably should have mulliganed, but if a hand of 7 with 1 land was going to get us to Tron, it's this one. Opponent starts Blast Zone, Expedition Map. So it looks like it's going to be a pretty slow start by our opponent, especially after they did mulligan. We get a Sylvan Scrying. So normally if I was just going to try and high roll a win, I would cast Expedition Map here, because if I top deck any other Tron piece, that gets me Tron. However, top decking any land gets me to Sylvan Scrying, and so I'm going to play Chromatic Star and have access to 2 draws next turn to try and hit a second land, and if I hit a Tron piece, I can Sylvan Scrying for the 3rd Tron piece, and then it's turn 3 Natural Tron, basically. So, and once again, we cast Star and not Sphere, because if Star goes to the graveyard for any reason, we draw, and Sphere has to be activated for us to draw. So, if my opponent thought it was important enough to destroy this somehow, or play Chalice, I guess, this does take us off of our other Sphere and our map, which is pretty bad, but we drew Wilt, so land please. Really need a land. That is not a land. Or But we're going to have to discard anyway. So this is really bad now. I'm going to discard Oblivion Stone. So nobody can play any more 1-drops right now. And we basically need to top deck a forest. That doesn't do it. So we're going to discard Ancient Stirrings, because we have to wilt before we can Ancient Stirrings. Opponent cracks map, probably gets Eldrazi Temple, because they're probably holding Reality Smasher. Yep. They got Eldrazi Temple. Here comes Temple. If it's Thought Knot, that's not so bad. It's Smasher. Okay, so short of... We need to top deck a forest, or Dismember. I really just want to concede, but I'll play it out. We'll discard Scrying. It's getting to be too late now because our opponent's clock is going to be too quick that even if we drew exactly the cards we needed, unless my opponent's holding 3 lands, we're not going to have enough time to do it. Like, them playing any other threat here is... yeah, okay. Alright. Game 3. I kept a risky hand, and I knew it. I should have mulliganed to 6. And you should too if you're in that position. That's one of the things that, like, for people who play Tron, if you're a good Tron player, you can keep that hand and make it work. If you're a great Tron player, you can mulligan all the way down to like 5 or 4, figure out how to assemble Tron along the way. Like, the London Mulligan was incredibly good for Tron, so... I mean, as it was for a lot of decks, but like... It's definitely something that should be taken advantage of. And sometimes I get greedy and try and do stuff like that, and that's why I lose. Because I'm not a fantastic Tron player. I'm just kinda good. When I get lucky. And terrible when I don't. Alright, we'll play first. This is a 2-piece Tron hand. If one of these was a different Tron piece, I would keep this. I'm mulliganing. Going to 5. Alright, we're going to keep. We're going to put back Ulamog. And pains me to do this, but I think it's got to be Karn Liberated. Great Creator is playable at some point if we top deck lands. Karn Liberated is only playable if we assemble Tron. So, start mine. Sphere or Star is really good here if we top deck it. Final Tron piece is good if we top deck it. Any land is okay. Forest is alright. So that leaves us with really half the deck is okay to top deck. This is not a bad hand. It's just not a guaranteed win. Never mind. Play Power Plant. Pass the turn. This is a guaranteed win. Okay, opponent plays a Power Plant. Chalice on 1. Oh, Mind Stone. Okay. Well, opponent is going to be sad about that Mind Stone here in a second. Top deck Ugin, which will be a great follow-up if we get the mana. Play Karn. Opponent can no longer use Mind Stone. We will Wish. Get Liquimetal Coating. Play Coating. And that's the game. So the first turn you play Coating, you always want to use it on your opponent's upkeep. Just in case my opponent actually does assemble Tron, we take out Tower temporarily. Opponent plays an Eldrazi Temple, they only have 3 mana. They could play a Matter Reshaper. This does pose a pretty interesting problem, actually. We're not guaranteed to win. I would say we're at like 70% right now, because next turn, if we're using Liquimetal Coating to blow up a land, we're not wishing for another artifact. And Karn can only destroy 1 land. So if we destroy Eldrazi Temple and my opponent completes Tron, that's really bad. If we destroy a Tron piece and my opponent plays a land and plays a Thought-Knot Seer, that's pretty bad, but not the end of days. Okay? Opponent plays a Matter Reshaper. Best draw would be a land here. Okay? Sylvan Scrying is not a land. It's close. Let's take a look at what's in our sideboard. We could wish for and play any artifact out of the side. So we can play Wormcoil, Walking Ballista, Trinisphere, Grafdigger's Cage, or Ensnaring Bridge. Okay. How can this go wrong? If we kill a Tron piece, my opponent could play a land and play a Thought-Knot. If we kill Eldrazi Temple, it's possible my opponent could play a land and like another Matter Reshaper, but if they happen to hit the last Tron piece, we're like dead, because they can play Reality Smasher and we just don't come back from that without top decking another threat. I think we hit the tower. It really sucks that we didn't draw another land to play anything with, or like a sphere or a star. This might have been a scenario where like siding out a sphere or a star would have been right to like just increase your threat density a little bit, but I really do not like taking out cantrips because I do not like decreasing my like consistency. So opponent will be able to attack with Matter Reshaper and take Karn down to 1, but that means we're going to hit at least one more land with him before he goes away, which gives us another opportunity to top deck something that will end the game. Taking Eldrazi Tron off of mana like this... Okay, my opponent could still have another Temple, and if they play another Temple and play Reality Smasher, we're probably boned. Okay, they just had a regular power plant. Here comes Thought Knot. Okay, so if I were my opponent, I would take Ancient Stirrings. Because Ugin the Spirit Dragon does nothing in the face of all of this. They take Ugin, okay? So if we top deck a green source, potentially we can do nasty things. They attack Karn down to 1, that's fine. As fine as it can be, anyway. Come on, green mana. Okay, that is not green mana. So our best play here is terrible. Play Power Plant, take our opponent off of Eldrazi Temple. The alternative to this play was like animate Liquid Metal Coating to block, and Karn still dies and we would lose Liquid Metal Coating, so... I regret putting back Karn Liberated, because we top-decked into Tron, but it was still correct to do so because we needed to keep our consistency pieces in case we got a sphere, a star, green mana. If we put either of these back, we were basically like, oh yeah, only natural Tron is an okay top deck. Which is the least likely of those things. It just happened to be the one we got, right? The opponent attacks Karn, attacks us. We go to 16, and our opponent now has 4 mana. About the only bad top deck we have is Ulamog, because Ulamog is the only thing I think we can't cast. Anything else at this point would be good. Opponent plays another Matter Reshaper, we untap. Okay, Ulamog is now our best top deck. But, opponent has 10 damage. So, one Reality Smasher does not kill us, but any creature will kill us. Because even if we top deck Ulamog, we would have to top deck O-Stone at this point, which is a top deck we can have, so I mean, like, it's not horrible. Maybe instead of going for Coding, I should have gone and gotten Wormcoil Engine. That might be an actual mistake. Alright, yeah, we're basically top decking into O-Stone only. If we get Ulamog, we could nuke like Thought Knot Reality Smasher, but then they swing past Ulamog with 2 Matter Reshapers and we die. And we top deck another card we can't cast. So, something important I want to note. If you look at this game with hindsight, you'll go, oh, why did you put back Karn? I know I just talked about this a little bit, but I want to emphasize this point. I think it's really important. They'll be like, oh, well, why did you put back Karn? If you didn't put back Karn, you would have won. And that's true. I would have won. That is a way I would have won the game. But looking at it with hindsight like that is useless. It doesn't matter if a line you could have taken would have won you the game or not. It matters if that line was the line that gave you the best chance of winning. That's the line you should take. Always. Like, you always take the line that gives you the best chance of winning. And that's true for, like, real-life experience, too. Like, that is probably the most important real-life lesson Magic has ever taught me, is you always do the thing that gives you the best chance of the result you want. If you don't do that, or you look back on things with hindsight, you go, oh, I regret not buying Bitcoin when it was only a penny and it was a new thing. It's like, yeah, but like, you could have dumped $10,000 into Bitcoin and it could have never gone anywhere. And that wasn't a high chance of like victory, you know? Just looking on things with hindsight like that is not useful. It's depressing. So don't do it. It's bad for you. Also, it is undoubted that I made mistakes this league. I know I punted, I cast the Ancient Stirrings. I ended up winning that game too, I think. But I cast Ancient Stirrings into a Chalice. I make mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes. We're all human. But like, these matches were really close. and could have very easily been wins if my opponent had drawn one different card, or if I had drawn one different card. I really don't think I've been making that many play mistakes. I've made a couple of big ones, but I haven't made that many. I don't feel this. So if I'm wrong, please correct me. Say, oh no, Kano, you're dumbass. You did this and you should have done that. Like, let me know. But like, all right, natural Tron into Wormcoil. I guess I'll keep. We'll throw back Thrag Boy. And I'll see how we do here. Opponent is on the play, so natural Tron on turn 3 is a little bit worse, especially when they're playing islands. But we draw Karn, which makes everything a little bit better. It's a better threat to play than Wormcoil. So we start Expedition Map. Opponent opts. Okay. They play Polluted Delta. We draw a Chromatic Sphere. Play Tower. Pass the turn. So opponent knows if they're reasonable at all, they need to leave up counter magic next turn, especially if they're blue-white. So my opponent could be on Time Warps. We are in the loser's bracket. And Time Warps is generally what plays Prairie Stream, not Control. Though I could see Control playing this. This is like the ideal Control hand. And I don't know why more Control decks don't play the double check, like untap lands, you know? Okay, we draw Wormcoil. We'll play Mine. Play Karn. Okay. If this is a remand, I'm playing against Time Warps. If this is any other counterspell, I'm playing against Control. And the fact of the matter is, they were like, you know, I might counter that. Well, let's see what he wishes for first. Liquid Metal Coating is the highest upside here. Trinisphere might be better, but Liquid Metal Coating plays around one thing, which is Censor. And if my opponent counters this, we can resolve a map. They Mana Leak. Okay, so my opponent is playing regular Control. We'll play Expedition Map. Pass the turn. Okay, opponent cracks Flooded Strand. Now, one thing of note, this Tron list that I'm playing right now is not like the last Tron list I played where I have a Relic of Progenitus. So unless my opponent exiles my graveyard, I cannot get Liquid Metal Coating back, which is a big deal. I think you should play Relic at least in the board. Do I have anything that I can use to exile stuff out of the grave? I do not. I have nothing. Alright, opponent plays Teferi, bounces map. We untap. We draw Ancient Stirrings. So play Mine, or not play Mine, play Sphere. I was looking at Mine, I was like, tap Mine. So, crack Sphere to draw a card. Ancient Stirrings. We're going to try and hit a land here. Another Karn Great Creator. We currently have 5 mana, so this is actually really bad. We haven't used Karn yet, so I think what we're going to do is we're going to wish for Walking Ballista. I'm going to take another Karn just as a backup. Rest of the bottom any order. We'll play another Star. Crack for green. Thragtusk. I am going to Ancient Stirrings because the odds that I hit a land here are, like, almost certain. We'll take another Power Plant. Rest of the bottom. Play a Power Plant. Wish. We will use Karn's ability. We will take Walking Ballista. Play Map first, because my opponent could have a Spell Pierce. Not sure. I would probably still let it get countered, but it disincentivizes my opponent from playing a Spell Pierce. And then we play Walking Ballista. Ping down Teferi. Okay, opponent paths Walking Ballista. I will let Walking Ballista die. I do want green mana. 1, because I'm holding Thragtusk, and 2, it makes my top decks better. I know I used 2 Ancient Stirrings, so I don't have that many things left in my deck, but Sylvan Scryings, etc. are now castable, even prior to cracking a map. Okay, we draw Chromatic Star. Alright, so we currently have 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 mana. We'll play Wormcoil. Wormcoil's pretty bad versus Path. Thragtusk is a lot better, but I've got a feeling what they've got now is a counter spell. I mean, they could have Snapcaster for Path, obviously, but they could also Snapcaster Mana Leak. It doesn't matter too much because Thragtusk or Wormcoil could have gotten around a Mana Leak here, but... Alright. We're going to crack map. Oh shoot, hang on. Wishing for Walking Ballista might have been a little bit of a mistake. I don't think it was a mistake because we needed to kill Teferi, but like getting Walking Ballista after getting Sanctum of Ugin is huge because you can use it to get Ulamog, which absolutely royally destroys control decks. We're going to finish this off with a Chromatic Star. Opponent mana leaks Chromatic Star. That's fine. Because we don't need Chromatic Star. It's just kind of nice. Tick up. I was also right in that my opponent had a counterspell. Mana leak is like kind of okay versus Tron. It's good before they assemble Tron, and then after that's not that great. Okay. Lanners is mine. Go to combat. Attack for 6. Opponent takes 6, we go to 26. Play Thragtusk. This would be a spell they want to counter, so if they have a Cryptic, they'll probably use it here. Because my opponent has missed land drops for multiple turns, they need to counter draw. Yep. Okay. Cool. So now, we can Wish with Karn. Oh, we have a Walking Ballista in the Exile Zone? I forgot about it because of Path. I'm glad that they show you this and you don't have to go hunt for it. In that case, we're definitely taking Ballista. And we're definitely cracking at X8 so that we can sacrifice it to we can sacrifice Sanctum to it and go get Ulamog. Big brain plays. It's actually a line I didn't see. But yeah, my opponent conceded immediately. Because they missed land drops for so long, the instant we take out 2 of their lands, they can never come back from that, ever. And the fact of the matter is, even if they had another path for Ulamog, we would have followed that up with Karn Trinisphere, and that would have been game for sure. So, we definitely want the Veil of Summers. Dismember is going to do nothing. Wormcoil is really bad versus Path, and I mean, like, really bad. I'm going to cut another Wormcoil for a Thragtusk, just because it's a slightly better threat. And my opponent is probably playing Snapcasters. They look like a pretty traditional blue-white control list. We could cut... I think it's probably good to cut all his dust for Emrakul here. Emrakul is one of those guaranteed value Eldrazi where because of the Eldrazi have on-cast triggers, it's very difficult for Control to do anything about it because there's no really main deckable Stifle effect in Modern. I mean, there is if you're playing Torrential Replicate, but that deck is something else. Okay, this hand I think is good enough to keep. Off of the strength of a Karn Great Creator. We have so many ways to get Tron pieces. We're going to assemble Tron. And our opponent mulliganed. Okay. Opponent starts Mystic Sanctuary tapped. Sure. We untap, we draw a map. Okay. So in this scenario, it's normally really important to resolve Chromatic Star, and in fact it still might be. But because we have 2 lands in hand already, and we have a second map, if my opponent counters Chromatic Star, and we can't Ancient Stirrings next turn, we can tutor for a forest, if we have to. Okay? Opponent plays Misty. Yeah, the only spell Control would ever tap out for on 2 if they weren't desperate to hit cantrips for lands or something would be Search for Iskanta, and that's kind of fallen out of favor. Alright, we're going to try and resolve Chromatic Star. If my opponent mana leaks this, we have a map that we can play as well. Alright. In fact, now I'm just going to play map. Only way we get blown out is if my opponent is now running Engineered Explosives. Okay? This one they counter. That makes sense. So the good news is, my opponent is having to go pretty low on resources to get here. They're probably going to play Teferi. Okay? They're going to bounce map. Yep. Okay. We draw Emrakul. So, Crack Star for green. Draw a card. Another tower. Use tower. Sylvan Scrying. Get Power Plant. Play Power Plant. Play map. Pass the turn. Okay. If my opponent has an Engineered Explosives or a way to get rid of this Expedition map, Fragmentize, Disenchant, we're in a pretty bad place. Okay, Field of Ruin. Field of Ruin is actually pretty bad here. We draw Power Plant. So they are going to hit Power Plant. We're going to crack for Mine. Okay. We get a Forest. This is delaying us off of Tron, but it's helping us get up to Emrakul mana because of Emrakul's Delirium cost reduction. So we play mine, and we're going to Sylvan Scrying. Okay. We will take... We have double tower. I'm actually going to tutor up another mine for redundancy's sake. Okay, pass the turn. Okay, opponent ticks up to Fairy, plays a land. We untap. We draw Ugin. So, play Power Plant. Play Ugin. Sack Sanctum. Get Ulamog. Alright, we'll see if Ugin resolves. It does, which is not what I expected. We're going to tick up to kill Teferi, which is vastly superior than down ticking. Alright. So our opponent cycles a Shark Typhoon. I feel like they should have maybe done that in response. But we didn't cast Ancient Stirrings because I was like, I don't want to get it countered right now. But considering my opponent just tapped out, I'm going to Ancient Stirrings. Okay? I'll take Karn Liberated. And now we're playing a game of, can my opponent answer every single threat I'm going to cast? And considering they're not drawing multiple cards a turn, probably not. Okay? They hit Ugin for 3, but Ugin does not really care that much, because Ugin gonna tick up and take out that shark. So from this position, we need to deny our opponent as much mana as possible, as fast as possible. So the first thing I'm going to do is kill that. The second thing I'm going to do is, we have 3 card types. I could cast Emrakul here, but we're going to Ulamog. Take out these 2 lands. Okay. I kind of expected more interaction. My opponent probably has a path now that I think about it. Yep. It's actually fine. They're not going to beat, like, all of the threats that we have. 5 mana, they play Big Teferi. Okay, they tuck Ugin into the deck. We untap. We draw a Power Plant. So, play Power Plant. We're currently looking at 14 mana. We can play both Karns. Play Karn. Kill Teferi. Play Karn. Wish. Or... Okay, opponent concedes. I would have gotten Liquid Metal Coating there. Actually, no, I would have gotten Trinisphere. Alright, so we're 2-2. And we're going into round 5. This was very close to a 5-0, by the way, had I played all of these matches against these decks. Considering how close these 1-2s were, this could have easily been a 4-1 or a 5-0. Well, I guess that's a little presumptuous. I have no idea what I get playing against round 5. I could be playing against Stone Rain, Sowing Salt the deck, and then I would probably have no dream of winning. Alright, we'll play first. Alright, we'll keep. Natural Tron into Karn is good, I hear. Play map. Pass the turn. Okay, it's Ponza, which is pretty bad. Pass the turn. So unless my opponent has a Pillage, like Stomping Ground into Pillage, or Stomping Ground into Blood Moon, we're probably going to beat them like a drum. Okay, opponent plays a Forest. So they only have green mana. Okay, never mind. They have Utopia Sprawl, so they have the legendary 4 mana on turn 2. Alright, well, let's go get a Forest. It's not Blood Moon, but it's the next best thing. This is actually less punishing to us than Pillage would be. So we are not going to expose that Forest to a Pillage until we have to. O-Stone is excellent Pillage bait, because they basically have to answer this or they'll have nothing. Ponza is a deck that every single spell they cast, almost, with the exception of like Pillage, Abrade, or Lightning Bolt, is a permanent. So O-Stone is a huge threat. It makes them slow the game way down and causes a lot of problems for your opponent. Okay, opponent gets in for 4. We go to 16. Pillage. Knew it. Okay. Play a Forest. Ancient Stirrings. Kind of hoping for a Power Plant. There it is. West of the bottom. Play Mine. Oh wait, no, we already played a land. Excuse me. Play O-Stone. Pass the turn. So, power plant is so that we can assemble Tron after blowing up the world, basically. Opponent plays a Windswept Heath, gets in for 4. We go to 12. They only have 2 cards in hand, so even if they have another pillage and they take out our O-Stone, we're going to have enough lands to just cast a Wormcoil Engine, which is pretty hard for our opponent's deck to deal with. Okay, opponent plays a Forest. We are going to take the damage. It is dangerous, but at the same time, it prevents my opponent from playing a threat on their second main phase, and gives us maximum advantage when we untap. Because like my opponent could have just cast another Blood Moon, and then we would only have Wormcoil, and that would be bad. Alright. Play an Urza's Mine. So we now have 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 mana. Play Karn. Sack Sanctum. Get Ulamog. Karn resolves. Play Sphere. This was technically a misplay. I should have upticked Karn first, because if my opponent's last 2 cards are Bolt, they can actually answer Karn. But if they're doing that, they're not putting 2 bolts at her face. I could deny my opponent's mana, because they could play like a Glorybringer next turn, but we're going to be doing that with Ulamog as well, so I think upticking Karn here is correct. It's better to deny my opponent, like, because if they weren't playing threats or Blood Moons or anything on their turn, and they only have 2 cards in hand, they had another Blood Moon. See, I knew waiting till the second main phase was correct. I knew it. For some reason, every time I type a number, it goes into my opponent's time box. That's a bug. That's really weird. Moto is quality programming, 100%. Alright, opponent has a Questing Beast, so they can attack us and deal 4 damage to Karn. I'm really glad I didn't downtick Karn. Okay, so we go to 4. Untap. Draw Chromatic Star. First things first, crack Star for green. We get an Ugin. Let's play Ulamog. Nuke here and here. It's unlikely that my opponent would be playing something like Flames of the Blood Hand. I think ticking up is stronger, so I'm going to do that. I probably should have down-ticked to take out my opponent's red mana, but I'm glad I upticked because if they drew red mana and played Seasoned Pyromancer, they would draw 2 more cards. So we kind of stemmed the flow of cards from our opponent. Next turn, we're going to play a Wormcoil or 2 Wormcoils if we draw a card, or if we draw land, but that's the game. Okay, so game 2, what do we do? I'm going to bring in Spatial Contortion, Dismember, and Warping Wail. I'm also going to cut Wormcoils, bring in a Thrag Tusk, and a Walking Ballista. We're going to cut... Actually, we're going to go down all of our Wormcoils. They're very good, they're very strong versus our opponent's deck, but I would rather wish for them, and I think Thrag Tusk is better in the main deck right now. I'm actually going to... I think cut all is dust. It's good, but it's very slow. Maybe I don't need Warping Wail. No, Warping Wail is good because it can counter land destruction spells. I'm actually not going to run all my Dismembers. I'm going to run it like this. Okay, this is not a keepable hand. This, however, is. With our opponent being on the play, playing the Tron lands is a lot worse because my opponent could absolutely just Elf Pillage turn 2 or Elf Stone Rain turn 2. Okay, they're going to keep 6. I want to keep Walking Ballista to take out an Elf so that they can't pillage and then play a threat, but I think putting Walking Ballista back is actually correct here. Okay, opponent starts Forest Elf. Sure. By the time we could play Walking Ballista, they could already fire off all of their threats that they want to anyway. So, play Power Plant Sphere. The good news is Sylvan Scrying can get us whatever Tron piece they destroy, if they destroy a Tron piece. And we have a Forest for Thrag Tusk if our opponent plays Blood Moon. So, opponent is deep in the tank, which either means they're really screwed because they didn't draw a land, or they're trying to decide which threat to cast. So they could cast Blood Moon, they could cast Pillage. Less powerful than that, they could cast the Pyromancer, or... Okay, they Pillage. That's fine. We draw a map. So play mine, play map, pass the turn. The good news is, if my opponent just spends all of their time and mana casting land destruction spells, we have enough redundancy that like we're gonna go get the other lands we need, unless my opponent has a surgical extraction, which I don't think I've ever seen out of red-green Ponza, but they could do it if they wanted to. I think they would rather just play Sowing Salt or the other, the one I can never remember that has Devoid from Battle for Zendikar. Alright, play Tower. Pass the turn. We're going to leave Chromatic Sphere on board because that lets us assemble Tron, have a draw at hitting like Karn, and then playing Thragtusk if we draw nothing else. So opponent can hit Pillage if they want to drain us, which is probably what they're going to do. At this point in the game, they're going to just want to do as much damage as possible, as fast as possible. If they can keep us off mana, that's going to be like their secondary priority, I think. Because they need to play threats. They can't just cast a bunch of pillages and win the game from this position. Okay, Blood Moon. Not that big of a deal right now, but we are going to get Power Plant. We want to have Tron for when we take down Blood Moon. Okay. Oh, I also could have brought in Wilts. I don't think I brought them in to hit Blood Moon, but for a hand that's like this anemic from our opponent, generally it's not like a big deal to actually cast Blood Moon. Because like across the next couple of turns, what's going to happen? We are going to play 2 lands and play Thragtusk, which is pretty good against our opponent's deck. The only way it's not good is if my opponent does some ridiculous like Pyromancer chain, like we've seen the last couple of times we played this deck, where they play, you know, 3 mana 2/2, discard 2 cards, make 2 1/1s, draw 2 more cards, play another one, Bloodbraid Elf, cascade into 1, draw another one, untap, play it, like something crazy like that, right? We're saving Dismember to kill Klothys the instant she becomes a creature, but if she becomes a creature, we're probably losing, because that means our opponent put a bunch of Devotion on board, which means a bunch of other threats. So O-Stone would be a good draw. What else? Kind of drawing a blank. Opponent is going to attack for 1. Sure. So they were probably trying to tap Stomping Ground to cast a double red spell, because they can't untap Stomping Ground anymore. It's no longer a forest. Okay. Untap. We draw Sylvan Scrying. So at this point, I'm going to play a forest, and I'm going to Sylvan Scrying to get another forest. If my opponent has the option, this might give them enough incentive to cast a pillage on a forest, rather than propagate another threat, which gives us another draw, potentially, at a spell that matters. Okay. Not going to F6, because we do have a Dismember, and that Dismember might be something we have to cast. From this position, though, we're only going to have to spend 2 life on Dismember. We can use Chromatic Sphere to get 1 black mana. Okay, it's probably a Pyromancer. Nope, it's a Pillage. Okay. Opponent's going to go to combat, attack for 1. Do we Dismember the Elf and take them off of mana? I actually think I do. I kind of want a redraw here. We only have to spend 2 life, and that Elf is probably going to do at least that much damage in the coming turns, so... Okay, we draw a tower. So, play tower. Pass the turn. We're going to put down redundant Tron pieces before we get the last Tron piece. I'm kind of interested to see what our opponent has hit. Worst case is this is a Glorybringer. That's a Glorybringer, okay. That's pretty bad news, actually. Glorybringer can kill Thragtusk and turn it into a 3/3. Or if they have Lightning Bolt, they can kill both halves. It does keep us alive a little bit longer, which might let us get to Karn if they don't exert, which at this point they have enough life, they might not. But we'll see how they play. If we can get to Karn, we win. Even better, if we can get to 7 mana and we draw 4 mana Karn, we can get Ensnaring Bridge, and then our opponent has to draw like Pillage number 3. Okay, they hit Dismember, they drain us for 2. I think they just attack and don't exert, because that gives them lethal off of Klothys, which means we would be forced to draw something that answers the board. I kind of regret using the Dismember on the Elf, Because I kind of forget that this card can also produce mana. But at the same time, like, what are the odds my opponent a Glorybringer, etc. They are exerting, which means they either have lethal damage off of something else, like another Glorybringer, and just want to deny us as many resources as possible. Okay, best draw would be another Thragtusk here. Opponent bolts our face. Okay, we're just dead to bolt. Alright, okay, I'm going to bring in Wilt over Warping Whale, and we're going to run it back. The good news is we're on the play for Game 3, which is when we are at our strongest. Okay, we'll play first. I'm going to keep this. I think the Chromatic Star into Ancient Stirrings is one of our best starts that isn't Natural Tron. It's quite possible I should have mulliganed, but I'm actually running low on time. I've got other things I need to do this morning. So, we'll start Chromatic Star, pass the turn. Okay, they fetch Stomping Ground. They get an Arbor Elf. Okay, so Crack Star for green. We get Mine. Okay, now we have a choice to make. We can Ancient Stirrings, like we were planning. We can Sylvan Scrying and have Natural Tron, but if my opponent plays Blood Moon or Pillage next turn, that's terrible. Or, we can Ancient Stirrings, try and hit Power Plant, play Mine, and Dismember Arbor Elf, and that prevents them from pillaging. We do have Wilt in case of Blood Moon, but we won't have green. I think the Ancient Stirrings plan here is better. I'm going to do that. There's Power Plant. Okay, play Power Plant, Dismember. So our opponent is not going to, unless they're playing Boom and Bust, they are not going to be able to destroy a land before we assemble Tron, and we are going to have Karn Liquimetal Coating when they only have 2 mana. And I think that's going to be game. Opponent could have a Lightning Bolt for Karn, which would buy them an extra turn. So wish for Karn. Actually, I'm going to wish for Trinisphere. Trinisphere is good even if they have an answer for Karn, and we have another Karn next turn. They bolt Karn. See, I knew it. I knew it. I knew Trinisphere was the card to get here. So my opponent could play Blood Moon, and that would be their best play here. They could also have a Pillage, which would suck, but if they don't have another land, ooh, they don't have another land. They're completely locked out of this game. Okay, wish. Liquimetal Coating. Play Liquimetal Coating for 3 because of Trinisphere. That's why I didn't play map first. A lot of people will make the mistake of trying to map off of Urza's Tower so that they can just fetch another map. But you always have to remember to play around your own effects. Unlike me sometimes, I actually make that mistake. So don't be like me, be a better Magic player. Okay, on our opponent's upkeep, we're going to take them off of a mana. This way, even if they top deck a land, they will not be able to cast Blood Moon or Pillage. And this game, I think, is over. Okay. Yep, they can't cast Arbor Elf. And they will never cast another spell again. And that's the league. We ended up going 3-2, which is not bad. Ponza is usually kind of a difficult matchup. But we're going to go ahead and open that treasure chest, and I'm not going to talk too long about this post-game here. Sealed product, okay. See what we get. 10 play points, 5 promo forests, and a Titan Hunter, whatever that card is. I've never heard of this. Beginning of each player's end step, if no creatures died this turn, it deals 4 damage to that player. Sacrifice creature, you gain 4 life. Interesting. Huh. Well, alright then. So I think we did fine this game, this matchup. This league. I think we did fine this league. I think this version of the deck is fine to play. I missed the relics a little bit, as I mentioned earlier, like not being able to wish for some of the artifacts for the longer game to like rebuy Liquimetal Coating if it got countered or something like that, I think is a little bit unfortunate. Luckily, that game we wanted a Walking Ballista, and our opponent pathed a Walking Ballista, and we let it get exiled, and we let it get exiled because we needed mana. So remember, sometimes letting your Walking Ballista get exiled might be the correct play. It's not always correct to just default to down ticket and kill your opponent. I think that's the most important lesson we learned this league that's Tron specific. So I don't have too much else to say. I think this list is just fine. I would recommend playing this list if you wanted to play Tron. I think Grafdigger's Cage is a fine card to have, but I kind of want to see a relic somewhere in the deck, and I actually probably would cut a Dismember from the side and put Relic in the side. So I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, please leave a like, drop a comment, subscribe to the channel if you're so inclined. And always, as always, if you want to catch me streaming live, I stream Wednesdays at 6 p.m. Mountain Time, which is 8 p.m. Eastern Time, over on Twitch. Same username on there as you find me on here. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye!